Hey guys, my name is Matsumo, and welcome to your episode of Sunday Mailbox. This is a video series where you, the viewer, can submit your gaming-related questions, and then I'll give my humble opinion on them. To get the formalities out of the way real quick, if you'd like to submit your own question that could be featured in an upcoming episode, you can do so by leaving a comment down below, or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. The first question really comes from Victor, and it is, what are your thoughts on having two defensive operators in Rainbow Six Siege who receive passive buffs, faster reload, quieter footsteps when near each other? It would notify you when you are close enough, like a mute jammer, and would encourage teamwork. That is a really interesting concept. I believe other video games have done something similar. I think in League of Legends, for example, they have two champions where if you pair them together, they have their own unique synergies that are exclusive to them. And so to bring something like that into Rainbow Six Siege could be really interesting. Now, I feel like this would have to be a side benefit of these operators. This couldn't be the only thing they bring to either the offensive or the defensive team. They would need to have some other main gadget at their disposal. Maybe not the best gadgets because they do have this passive, but there would need to be something else. What if you selected this operator at the beginning of a round, but no one on your team, because you're playing with a bunch of randoms, decides to play the other one? You're basically out of luck at that point. Or at the start of a match, your other friend gets taken out at the very beginning. You literally have nothing that you would bring to your team. You would need to have some other gadget to make this worthwhile. I think the passive alone is really interesting, but it's not enough to actually make this the only thing that they bring to the table. Now, one way that Ubisoft could work around this is that instead of requiring you to be paired up with one other unique operator, maybe they just bring in a new character that simply has a passive AoE buff around them that benefits all of their teammates. So if they're near another operator, no matter who they are, or a bunch of them, then they receive this bonus. Maybe they reload faster. Maybe they have slightly less recoil. This could be kind of like a leader role where they have a commanding presence. I know we're kind of grasping at straws here. I know how corny this sounds, but that could be the justification for why everyone in their vicinity has these small little bonuses. That could be one way they go about it. Now, the one issue that I have with this idea, other than the loose justification for why everyone around you is now doing things faster or better or stronger, is the fact that it doesn't really require a whole lot of thoughts on the part of the player who is actually playing as this character. All you really need to do to help out your teammates is to stand next to them. You don't need to throw a gadget, you don't need to really know what you're doing, you just need to be nearby, and now everyone around you is doing stuff a little bit faster. That doesn't really sound all that interactive. On the other hand, though, what I do like about it is that it does require or force people to stick together a little bit more. You do need to be aware of what your teammates are doing, and usually in some situations, that's not to stick together. If you need to have someone flank around to get the angle on someone, if you're all by yourself, you're absolutely doing nothing for your team, at least with regard to that passive. And so that's a kind of another angle for why this may not even really be all that great. All in all, though, this is the first time I've ever heard an idea like this for Rainbow Six Siege, and I find it incredibly fascinating. I don't know if Ubisoft will ever do something like this in the future. Maybe it's too strong, maybe it's not good enough, maybe there isn't enough interaction between the person who has it and everyone around them. It's hard to say, but I would not be surprised if Ubisoft does explore something like this because it is a really unique idea. The next question comes from Nicholas, and it is, why do you think that pros enjoy a new map while players don't really like them? Well, I don't want to speak on behalf of pro players because I'm not one myself, but if I had to take a guess, it comes down to a couple of factors. The main one is that maps are difficult to learn, and when you don't understand a map, I think a lot of people default to not liking it because it's frustrating. When you don't know all the angles, when you don't know how to play certain objectives, and you get taken out of nowhere because you just don't understand the map, it's not really an enjoyable experience. And if you play Rainbow Six Siege casually, or even if you play a lot, to get enough map knowledge or to play on it to get a good understanding of what's going on takes an extensive amount of time. If you're only able to play Siege for a couple hours a week, that could take you a couple of months before you actually get a handle on these new maps, especially considering they're getting more and more complex. Villa and Fortress are some of the largest maps that we've ever gotten. It takes even longer to learn them. On the other side of the coin, though, you have professional players. They're pros for a reason. They play this game for a living, and so they need to learn the ins and outs of these maps as soon as possible. They got to figure out the different strategies. They need to learn all the different angles, and so they're going to figure out really quickly if a map is well balanced or if it has serious problems. I have a suspicion this is one of the reasons why Villa is played so often in the Pro League, and why, if I talk to a lot of my friends who don't play Rainbow Six Siege all that much, why they're not really a huge fan of it. We have to remember that this has been a trend for Rainbow Six Siege ever since the very beginning. A new map releases, people aren't really too thrilled by it, and then after a couple of months, everyone realizes, oh, this is actually one of the better maps in the game. This happened with Border, this happened with Coastline. Not everyone is a slam dunk. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying every map in the game has been fantastic, but there is that time where people have to get adjusted to that new content before they can really enjoy it, and I think that's what's happening here. And so if I had to take a guess to answer your question, that's really what it comes down to. The next question is, have you seen the Battlefield 5 roadmap, and if so, what are your thoughts on it? I did see the roadmap, and while there are some things that I'm a little excited about, we'll get that here in a second, I think in general it just leaves a sour taste in my mouth because there's not a lot of content available, especially if you compare it to past Battlefield games. A really good contrast to this is Battlefield 4. When it came out, within its first 6 months, they had 12 DLC maps. Battlefield 5 only has 1. Maps are a significant amount of content in this series. That's what gets people excited. That's what gets people coming back and enjoying the Battlefield franchise. You've conditioned your player base to expect that kind of a frequent update. And to only have 1 in 6 months, I really just think shows why so many people are disappointed with this roadmap. Now, I know that some people will make the argument that the reason why past Battlefields had so much more content was because they had premium. Now that they've moved on over to the live services, this is kind of what we get. And to some extent, I can see where they're coming from. DICE sold a product, they had to deliver on that product, and that's why we got those continuous updates. But at the same time, I feel like this is a poor excuse, especially when we compare it to other video games that also have live services. Just look at Rainbow Six Siege. Constant, frequent updates, more content every single season, 8 operators. You look over at Fortnite. I know not everyone is a huge fan of Fortnite, but you gotta give it to Epic. They're constantly updating their game for free and really varying up the gameplay. DICE has no excuse here. If you compare it to other video games, other live services, they're just doing what they're doing way better and delivering a lot more content. All that being said though, I am still excited about Firestorm. Hopefully that is going to breathe some life into the game. And then in fall, it looks like they're going to have a really big content update. People are speculating that it's going to bring in new factions. They're going to add in the Pacific kind of maps, and maybe that is going to be the DLC that everyone was kind of hoping for since the very beginning. It's hard to say because they haven't gone into any details, but I am crossing my fingers. All in all though, I still enjoy Battlefield 5. I think it's a good game. I will be checking out all this content, but it's hard not to be disappointed, especially when we compare it to previous Battlefield entries. The next question is, how would you feel about Twitch being able to recharge her drone by picking them back up? So correct me if I'm wrong here, guys, but I feel like I'm the odd one out because I'm constantly getting questions and suggestions on how people think Twitch needs an upgrade, but for me, I feel like she is one of the strongest operators in the game. Her weapon is phenomenal, it shreds anyone that it comes across, and while yes, her gadget does have weaknesses, what gadget doesn't? It's super stealthy, it doesn't make a lot of noise, and of course, it can take care of the wide variety of gadgets that are scattered around the map. Why do you need to have that thing recharge more shocks? It already has 10. How often are you running around the map where you run out of shocks? Like, I literally cannot think the last time I run out of shocks on both of my drones taking care of gadgets. Maybe the only time this would occur is if I'm doing damage against the enemy, but that happens so infrequently. Usually if I shock someone, they know where the drone is and they're going to immediately take it out. On top of that, this would just undo the reason why they nerfed her a long time ago. Ubisoft realized that she was a bit too strong, and so they wanted to tone down her influence. And while I realize that kind of contradicts what I just said, if you're never able to go through all of your shocks, then why would it matter if they added more? But essentially, she could take out all the cameras at the start, so no one had to worry about that. And then she, if she really wanted to, could really slowly, methodically zap everything and then have extra to zap the enemy. Like, it just was a bit too strong. And so all in all, I think that's just really what it comes down to. I feel like Twitch is in a really good spot right now. I do think that she is one of the strongest offensive operators in the game, and she doesn't need any improvements. But of course, that is just my 2 cents. But yeah, guys, that is about it for today's episode of Sunday Mailbox. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you guys thought about what we discussed in today's video. Do you like the idea of having operators that synergize or has kind of an AoE buff around them? Do you think that'd be too strong? Do you think that's not something that they should add into Rainbow Six Siege? Let me know down below in the comments. As always, if you'd like to submit your own question for an upcoming episode, you can also leave a comment or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. But until next time, guys, have a good one and take it easy.